Today we are going to talk about why Halloween is bad according to Theravada Buddhism. So celebrating Halloween in modern times mostly involves dressing up in costumes. And the question is this wholesome or is it unwholesome according to Theravada Buddhism? The problem is that it's like acting. And like any popular movie, a movie involves breaking the 5 precepts. Popular movie. Maybe a less popular movie might be a documentary or whatever. But we have the 5 precepts. Breaking the 5 precepts is killing, stealing, engaging in sexual misconduct, telling lies, and drinking alcohol and doing drugs. This is the formula of a popular movie, isn't it? And when you dress up in costumes or you act, especially for Halloween, usually, again, it's very bad. Usually you have unwholesome costumes. And even if you have a wholesome costume one year, you might end up with an unwholesome costume the next year. And that's why it's a bad habit. You might be the good fairy in one year, and then the next year, death zombie. So this is not very good. Not very good at all to do. Because when one acts, one is transforming their mind and body. They're embodying that character if they're really good. And when one dresses up, one makes a conscious or unconscious wish to have that come true. And anyone who has done Patitu Samuppada the correct way, according to the commentaries, knowing about the past lives, the present life, and what could happen in the future, they would tell you, be careful what you wish for, because you might just get it. And so when you wish for something, it's like, how does that give you a new life? How does that result in a new life? Well, the problem is when you paint a picture in the sky, it doesn't work. You need a medium to paint on. So when you wish to operate on someone, you wish you could operate on someone, you might become a doctor. If you wish you could kill someone, you imagine yourself killing someone. You might end up as that same person who kills someone. We have countless stories, so many stories in the Dhammapada about this. From life to life, they go on killing each other's babies, etc. So three major factors that contribute to the near-death moment just before death, which decides how you're born in the next life. We have the weight of the karma, the frequency of the karma, and of course, the proximity to death. How recent, how fresh it is in your mind. And so these things can contribute to you and how the results of your karma will result in the next life, in the 5 future khandhas. And the reason why I wrote this article originally was because there was a terrible accident in Seoul, South Korea. In South Korea in 2022, not very long ago. And there was some type of stampede, we might say. There was like a big crowd and people in front, they couldn't move, and the rest of the crowd pushed against them. They couldn't breathe and they suffocated. Maybe they were trampled on as well. And it was a Halloween festival, and they were dressed in costumes. Can you imagine? You're dressed as a goblin, or death zombie, or a serial killer. And at that moment, you die. What do we have? We have that proximity to death coming to fruition, which is very dangerous, especially in the conditions that arose. Unpleasant way to die, dressed up as goblin or whatever. It's very terrible. I remember in Nauena, we had one lady and she gave the food and then she died. She came to the monastery, and it's not funny, I guess. I'm thinking about cause and effect, and that's why I'm smiling. She died just like moments after she donated the food. We don't want anyone to die. Please try to live as long as possible. But we might guess that there were favorable conditions for her and her next life. There's a famous sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya called the Dog Duty Ascetic. And there was an ascetic, his name was Punna, and he asked the Buddha, he said Bhante, he asked the Buddha what would be the fruit of his practice, because he acted like a dog all the time. He walked like a dog, he ate like a dog. And that was his practice. And he asked the Buddha, he asked him what would happen to him with this practice that he's been following very faithfully, believing it would bring him to the heaven realm. And the Buddha, he said, don't ask me this question. The reason is, the Buddha, he says what is truthful. The Buddha, he says what is beneficial. He only speaks what is truthful, what is beneficial, and at the right time. But there's one thing that allows him to speak, and that is whether it's beneficial, whether it's pleasant or non-pleasant, unpleasant. So he speaks at the right time. He speaks what's beneficial. He always speaks the truth. But sometimes the words might not be so sweet. The words might not be so palatable. Other times they're wonderful, most of the time. But when we're talking about telling an ascetic who practices and acts like a dog all the time what would actually come to him, then of course it cannot be very pleasant. And the Buddha said, if you do this to perfection, the very best that can happen to you is that you become reborn in the company of dogs. Now in America, the dog life is very different than the dog life in Asia. People wish, I have a friend who wishes, he says he wants to be a dog in his next life because he has 2 dogs. They live on a 9-acre estate. He told me he wants to be a dog. He has these 2 beautiful dogs, now only one. And so people wish to be dogs because they don't know what it's like in India. They don't know what it's like in Sri Lanka. They don't know what it's like in Thailand, in Myanmar, Laos, and probably all parts of the world. Because America has animal shelters, they catch the dogs, and the majority of them get killed. In other countries, they don't do that. It's a very terrible life. If you ever go to Asia, you'll see. any third world country. And we could say it's good that they don't kill the dogs, that they let them roam free. In some ways, we can say. In many ways, as Buddhists, we don't want to see any dogs get killed. And so he says, if you follow this, the best thing that can happen is you end up in the company of dogs. But if you have wrong view and you believe that you will go to the realm of the gods because you're acting like a dog, this is wrong view. This is wrong view. You're acting on wrong view. It's spreading wrong view. And this is a good way to go to the lower realms, lower than the animal realms, into the realms of the hell realms. And so you might think that you might dress up as a monk on Halloween. Please don't do that. Please don't dress up as a monk. If you're not ordained, it's a theft of Sangha, it's theft of faith. It's very heavy, very bad. Please don't do that. You know, one time I was in Kauai with one of my friends, one of my senior friends. I think it was 2015. And we would go for alms. We would wish loving kindness in front of each house so that we're not in front of the house too long and not in front of the house too short. To give them time to see who we are, to look outside and understand that there's monks in front of their house. And also to wish loving kindness. And the lady comes out and she says, "Oh, what do we have here?" Just like you might say to kids, "We're going trick-or-treating." But eventually she understood that we were actually really monks. But she gave us Halloween candy. Actually, that day was one of our best days in terms of getting food from the local houses. We were fed by the Thai community would come. They knew where they could find us. And they would, on certain days, we had certain roads that we went on. And they would often donate to us. But the local people, sometimes we get, sometimes we don't. And of course, Halloween day, we got a lot of candy that day. Of course, it wasn't at night. We were going at the proper time. So my recommendation is to live out the good life every day. Embody a wholesome, real character and be a goody-goody. Be a little angel in your mind. Always do the right thing. Rather than putting on a costume, you can embody your mind into this wonderful, wholesome character. Because if you act like an angel, if you act like a dog, what happens to you? Yeah. And if you act like an angel, what will happen to you? But act like an angel who uses that good karma for the purpose of reaching Nibbana, always wishing for the conditions to reach Nibbana. Be a goody-goody. Be someone who is described to others, "Oh, this person is such an angel." Where they naturally want to call you that because you're so good. Whether you are this way naturally or even unnaturally, make an effort. Sometimes I tell people to be a metta warrior, loving kindness warrior, because you struggle with your mind sometimes to still give loving kindness when you don't want to. You're not fighting others, you're fighting yourself. You're conquering yourself. You know, the original reason for Halloween was to scare away the evil spirits. The loving kindness was actually instructed by the Buddha to these monks who were living in this like emerald forest, a beautiful place. And the tree devas moved out when the monks moved in, but they realized that the monks were going to stay, and so they started to scare them. And the monks started to talk to one another, comparing notes about what they're seeing, what they're hearing, and they realized that they must leave because the forest was haunted. They went back to the Buddha, and they decided that they had conditions to break the rainy season, to break the wasa. And the Buddha asked why they were there. They told him, and he said, there's no other place where you can attain. This is the place where you must meditate. And that's where the Karaniya Metta Sutta was given. And so he gave them the teaching of loving kindness, and they went back to that forest, and they radiated loving kindness. One of the benefits is that you'll be dear to other humans, and you'll be dear to non-humans. These are some of the benefits of loving kindness. So please, I think it's a good idea not to dress up in costumes on Halloween. And definitely don't try to scare people. That's another thing people do on Halloween. And try to generate wholesome kamma, to embody a new character, or continue your old character that is always very wholesome, staying away from breaking the 5 precepts, and holding on to keeping the 5 precepts, not killing, not stealing, not engaging in sexual misconduct, not lying, not doing alcohol or any drugs. And don't dress up as a monk, please. Make sure that you're ordained. If you meet the qualifications, it's not very difficult to become a monk, actually. You don't need actually a lot of schooling to become a monk. There's a test in my newer lineage, but at Pa'ak, they don't give you an examination. It doesn't take long, but you have to meet the qualifications. Remember that there's karma that you do that's heavy. There's karma that you do that's frequent. And there's karma that you do near to the proximity of death. And this can highly influence the outcomes of your near-death moment, which influences directly the next life, the new 5 khandhas. So try to be a good person, always, and be one who practices loving kindness. And reflect on how your celebrations reflect your intentions and your karma. We have Halloween, but there's also the Christmas spirit for non-Buddhists. They say, it's Christmas, I'll help this person out. Oh, it's Christmas, I'll give this person a gift. And many Christians, they say it should be Christmas. We should have the Christmas spirit every day. Yeah. In Buddhism, we have Wesak, which is a Buddhist holiday to celebrate the birth, the enlightenment, and the parinibbana of our Buddha. We also have the full moon days and the Upositas. What would happen if you died on the way to the temple? Focusing on doing good deeds, focusing on taking the 5 precepts, focusing on making a donation. Or the opposite, having a tragic death while being dressed in a costume. A costume of being a goblin or a death zombie or whatever. So I hope that you can focus on cause and effect, because you can die at any moment. As we say, we know for sure it will happen, but we don't know how and we don't know when it will happen. And if you don't know your past lives, you don't know where you came from. And it's difficult to know where you will go. So I hope you can use this reflection to be motivated to understand about cause and effect, so you may reach Nibbana safely and quickly. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.